Um, for the recording, hi there everyone, welcome to another Community Builders webinar. I'm Carlos from the Happy Startup School. I am joined here by Viktor Lysell. How do you say your surname?
Viktor Lysell Sma is my name.
Smolaning. That's
Thanks for
it.
having me. Yeah.
Sorry. If you see it written down, you can understand my hesitation. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to be learning from Viktor about his work on rituals. And from my perspective, the reason I'm quite interested in this is growing a community, specifically online, and also following on from the work and the webinars that I've been hosting with Charles Vogel and Casper ter Kuile, this idea of creating a safe space, creating boundaries, and then understanding when you're in or out of community. That for me is very important, and knowing how to do that well. And so thank you very much everyone for joining this call. And I hope you have questions, or you will find questions that will pop up to you as Viktor talks about his work. But before we kick off, if it's okay with you guys, it'd be nice to do a quick intro. Just a quick check-in, just say who you are. Are you building do you already have a community, or are you looking to build a community? And then maybe a little description of the community you're building and your specific interest in today's webinar. So what I'm going to do is I will nominate someone to talk first. Patrick, how about you unmute yourself and tell us a bit more about you?
Hello everyone, I'm Patrick. I am in a shed in Brighton. I run my own market research business called Outrageous Impact. I have this ridiculously large sign behind me just in case I forget the name of the business. And I do qualitative research for people changing the world. So that's charities, political pressure groups, purpose-led businesses, and also digital and innovation agencies. And I have like a small email list, but I'm interested in building a community.
Cool. Brilliant. Thank you, Patrick. Tony, your turn.
Hello, let me just unmute myself. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I run a community called the Social Society, which is basically a group of people in Brighton and Hove that want to give back to charities by pledging their time, skills and expertise. And we also run sort of social events locally to reduce isolation and bring people together. And I'm just also very interested in how you have grown your community and looking for hints and tips.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tony. Right, we have someone else coming in. Jennifer, are you able to say hello and intro yourself?
Yes, of course, of course. My video just doesn't work.
Don't worry, that's fine.
Yeah, I found out about this webinar from Lana Yelenev, who I know is big on building communities, and I'm actually starting a new one for digital marketers in Europe, and I wanted to start it right, build it around the community itself rather than as a business. So I want to make sure I have all the guidance I could possibly get.
Excellent. Cool.
So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I am, sorry, multitasking here. I'm going to pass over to, I'm going to say Abdel. I'm not sure if I pronounce your name correctly. Do you want to unmute yourself and say hello? No. Yes? Excellent.
Hello.
Hey, excellent.
Hey, how are
how
you?
do I pronounce your first name?
Abdel Hafid.
Abdel Hafid. Thank you very much, Abdel Hafid, for joining us. Could you tell us a bit more about, are you running a community or are you looking to build a community? And then just your interest in this particular webinar.
So I'm Abdel Hafid Jalour. I'm from Casablanca. I volunteer in Make Sense. He's a change maker global community from all over the world. So it was like 2 years now. I was building a community here in Casablanca for like more than 40 people who are helping social entrepreneurs here in Morocco. So I helped to build this community, and now I am running this community with others amazing people, kind of. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And what would be a successful webinar for you? What would be a useful thing to come away with today?
Yeah, just sharing some tips for community building or community organizing, some tips and kind of rituals that we can use here in Morocco for a community of a change maker.
Brilliant. Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. So while Victor is talking, if I can ask everyone to mute yourselves. I think it's just you, Abdul Hafid, sorry. This will be a bit interactive and I will be led by Victor in a bit. In the meantime, what will be interesting is in the chat, if anything springs to mind, could you type in any specific challenges, whatever they may be, that you're having with building your communities or in the community space? It'll be just, there's two things there. A, it would be useful to give Victor a bit more context, so I can read through those and feed back to him if he needs any, if he wants to hear from that. But also, it would be also useful for us at the Community Builders Group to learn what else we could source in terms of useful material for you guys to help you along your way. So I am now going to shut up and I'm going to hand over, and I hope this is the right way, to Victor to talk about rituals and community.
Thank you. It's really nice to be part of this and to be able to spend this time with you. I guess this is a ritual in a way too, of connecting with this community, showing up as a face more than a name. I've been doing this work with rituals for about 5 years now. It started with me attending an alternative business school in Switzerland called Chaos Pilots. It's a very ritualized environment which I was in there. Every day would start with a morning ritual. They would have some variations, but it was about getting the body active and present in the space. And then we did a check-in, and equally the day would also end with checkouts. So this kind of function of ritual as a container for the day and the week was something I became present in over there. And we had a lot of ritualized activities as part of the schedule. We'd do martial arts, yoga, theater as part of our curriculum to learn about ourselves and organizational development, project management, and so on. One of those elements made me also leave the school, and I became quite aware then about kind of the power of ritual, especially when it's set into this kind of trajectory that education is, or a learning journey is, where you're brought forward through doorways by ritual. Now that you can prove that you've learned what you need to move on, you can step through this ritualized space into kind of the next chapter of your learning journey. If you're not so much in control about where that doorway is going to take you, it can make for a very uncomfortable space, very uncomfortable experience, which, although you're part of like a very powerful process, can have a very disempowering result where you feel that your agency kind of goes away. So I was lucky back then because I was offered an internship in this Brighton-based agency, Nixon McInnes, between my first and second year of education. And I told them I didn't really want to go back to this school. So I was offered to stay there. And I had already committed for myself to 3 years of learning. And I was kind of unable or also unwilling to undo that commitment. So it's also about the power of ritual when you take this huge step, which in my case also meant leaving my home country of Sweden to go to Switzerland. The kind of energy that goes into that move is hard to undo. So I told them that for the next 2 years, great, for the next 2 years, I want to be on this learning journey, which I've committed to. So what we did then was that I set up with their support, my own university. I created a curriculum, exams, hired professors who I'd pay £1 as a symbolic gesture. Is trying to copy the kind of university structure. And then I led this education for myself in ritual design. And this was a agency for developing purposeful organizations. So we could have a great exchange where they paid me to place my self-made university in their offices and in their team, with the exchange that I share everything I learn, and that my exams and so on took the shape of client projects or internal processes. What I had to do for myself to graduate from this university was, for one, to end my childhood at the age of 23. So I made a ritual for me and my parents, where we left Viktor the child behind and went through that separation that is needed to start a new phase or a new identity. So that's something you can make a note of, that if you want to have like a major transformation in social roles, identity, and relationships, you have to first define and let go of whatever you need to let go of. It's not possible to just start a new chapter without ending the one you're in. So that's something I did. And then the second step to my exam period was to end this company which had hosted my journey. And that's something I can show you some pictures of if I can go into screen sharing. Is it just for me to press here?
There should be a button at the bottom, share.
Yeah, here we go.
Then you can then pick the screen.
Can you see my screen now? No. Yeah,
I can definitely see. I can see some of the slides.
Yeah, is it?
A.j. It's not full screen though, but it's.
Okay.
I can see the thumbnails. So if you click on that a.jpg, it might come up.
Yeah, I just did. Let's see.
There we go.
But is it full screen?
It's not full screen. You might need to go right to the top, and there should be a view in presentation mode or something. Unfortunately, Swedish isn't my first language.
There we go. Is it better now?
Okay, that's it's there. It's not full screen.
Yeah, I wonder why.
It might be a Zoom issue. There you go.
Yeah, okay. And I'm just gonna have to do this a lot then. So this is a picture from that ritual. It looked like it was. So this is the ritual for ending the community, the business Nixon McInnes transformation ritual. That was about kind of untying the relationships and the commitments to that group and the mission. So now I said untying, and this is something I want to speak about because it was the metaphor of the founder. From the people who asked me for help with this ritual, the language was, I want to untie this knot, and the knots between the people. I don't really use archaic symbolism and so on when I create rituals. I just use the symbolism that's at hand from whoever is asking for help. And in this case, it was about untying a knot. So to do that, we simply use that metaphor in another way. How do you tie a knot? How do you create those bonds between people and bonds between the self and a purposeful activity? So I did interviews with all these people, or some of them, to find the themes of how the process of integration to the community had looked like. And how do you untie a knot? Yeah, you just do the opposite thing. You reverse the process. So I looked at those themes that would arise as shared themes in the formation or the joining of this community. We did the opposite. So what you see there on the floor with the candles and the big blackboard is, first of all, it's a timeline, a map kind of the time these people have shared together. That is the opposite of sitting in a team meeting or at an interview looking forward and asking, what do we want to create together? What do I want to be part of? So just looking backwards instead of looking forwards. And those individual, this is what I want to get out of this. This is my needs for joining. Those are kind of represented by those candles as moments that felt fulfilling rather than what would give me fulfillment. So again, just looking backwards instead of forward. Stones, you can barely see them, but they're there as moments you want to let go of. If this company is something I leave now, if this chapter is something I leave now, what kind of stuff would I like to not carry with me into my next thing? Equally, you have said about the quality of these pictures. The opposite of being told by a company who they want you to be, or a community of people telling you, if you want to be part of this group, we're hoping you can behave and act in this way. It's reversed here to being told why they really love you and why you've been perfect just like you were. So maybe it doesn't answer a question of how to build a community, but rather how to end one. But I'll move on and we'll get there. I want to show you now some aspects of rituals that are quite familiar. So one aspect that we know is that ritual has a prescriptive element, right? There is an element of knowing what to do, what's the next step. And in this art installation I've done, I'm trying to mimic something called the rites of passage process. So I want to tell you about this because it's really essential for this kind of process about changing identity, joining groups, and so on. In this, people broke a piece of ice. They took the piece and then they decided what it represented. And then they entered a transformative space, which looks like this. And they placed the ice cube in one of these cylinders where it then would float in the middle because of the density of ice in the two oils. People could then have interaction with the ice cube and their self-representation that went through a process of separation. The water would melt from the ice and fall down, transform and form a new body of water. And that's an interesting process for representing rites of passages. It goes from separation to transformation to the manifestation of a new thing. So that's something about the prescriptive element of ritual. Another piece I've made is about an element of ritual that is condensation. That you take a big topic, it feels like I'm in this social sphere or these ideas and this concept, and just bring it to one point. That's something that ritual can do. It can condensate things. This is also a piece with instructions, so it has this prescriptive element. But it's mostly about condensation, and this is about what do I need in the moment before creation. So it requires you to be really present in that question, and then in this interaction, you create a symbol that you can use to kind of unlock yourself, if you're able to define what it is you need. Through, in this, you create a symbol through directing light beams through smoke and mirrors. Let's have a look at this. So using these aspects of prescription and condensation, you can create this. You can create rituals. In essence, there are more aspects to it, but they are important. This is a picture from a summer camp that I was part in designing. This is the ritual space which I made. The space also allows for a further condensation. You see some torches on the ground. You see a fire in the middle. And the ritual that took place here was for initiating a community while also starting the summer camp. What they did was to speak about why they were present, what needs they were trying to meet by joining this community. After having spoken, they lit their torch, and the next one to speak could light their torch on one that was already burning. And when all torches were burning, there was a moment of seeing who's there. Everyone's then very visible, and then they would light the fire together as a symbolic act for initiating this community together. Do you like it like this when I just tell you about some rituals, or would you like to go on in some different way? Someone's nodding. I can't, yeah,
Thumbs up if you're okay. Again, if you have a question right now, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, okay. Let's go for a question.
We can take a little detour with some questions if you wish.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what? Oh, so I think one that's very specific from Patrick. Could you please tell us a bit about the ritual you had to move from childhood to adulthood?
Okay.
Nice illustration of a transformation.
Absolutely, I can do this. So this was in the winter in central or northern Sweden, where I'm from. So you have a lot of snow and frozen lakes. So since this kind of rites of passage structure is about separation, transformation, and then kind of coming back to normality as a new being, it's a lot about leaving and coming back, leaving normality, going through the transformative experience and coming back. I wanted to do something physical that's about leaving and coming back. So I invited my parents to come down to the ice. They didn't know what to do. I hadn't told them that we were going to end my childhood, but our kind of relationship made them accept that something needs to happen anyway. So they just went along with it. And I told them when we stood there, still on land, still not having gone out yet towards an island that we were going to, told them that we're going to go out to this island now. And when we come back, Viktor, the child, is not going to be there anymore. I need you to, and I need myself to see him standing here on the beach. And when we come back, he's not going to be there. So just try and take a moment and see him there in order for this process of leaving him there to be meaningful. So we did that, and then we ice skated in silence out to this this island, and we made a fire there. Fire is a hugely great symbol for transformation, because that's what it does. It transforms things into energy and heat. And there we had a conversation about what had been good growing up and what hadn't been, to kind of bring a close. That's, if you want to separate from things, you really need to define them. So it's also about defining. And it was a good space, because the space that exists in a ritual, if done right, is a space where you see each other as equals, and you can listen to each other very openly. And that managed to arise, also because of this prescriptive nature, that one person speaks and then the next one is on turn, and you're not allowed to interrupt. So that kind of nature of ritual makes it easy for people to respect these rules, that we intuitively understand that there is some kind of format to this, which we somehow sacralize just by being in the ritual mode. And it was great, because there was things I could say to them that I might have been able to say before, but never really felt heard in. Like, even if it came from an immature place in me, it just felt good to get it out. Like, these limiting beliefs I have about myself that's really crippling me in my everyday life. I hate to say it, but I think you're pretty much to blame for putting those narrative in there. And that felt so good to get that out there, and they could take it, like just listening. And they did a similar thing. They could ask the same, or answer the same questions: what had been good and what had been difficult, and so on. And then we made agreements, and the first one was, can we agree that my childhood is now over? And everyone said yes. And then, can we agree that you're no longer allowed to raise me, or to act in this way as a parent does with a child of authority and knowing best? And they could agree to that they are no longer this kind of authority over me. And I equally agreed that I'm not to come from a place of inferiority and dependence and victimhood when approaching them. And then I told my father I smoke weed occasionally, just to see if it works. And yeah, he was a bit frustrated, but didn't try to raise me, so that was fine. You have to try your agreements. You have to. That's a symbolic act more than anything. And then just going back to normality, trying to step onto land with a new way of being, with these agreements in play. And that's maybe something was lacking in this ritual, because that community aspect wasn't there. There weren't people waiting for us at shore to congratulate that we've gone through this process, who will then also be able to help us maintain this new reality. Because in many traditions or cultures, when a child wants to become an adult, the whole community is part of that separation, of the separation where, okay, this is no longer a child. And then the coming back is a huge celebration of an adult. But I think we found some ways to get around it, simply by telling people that this had happened. And people could help us, I guess, maintain our new way of being. I don't think rituals are just like before and after and then bam, done, easy. It's more about opening the door to a new way of being, maybe taking the first step, but there's work to do after that too. But yeah, still though, rituals have this ability of facilitating the shift before and after, equally in and out, before I was a member and after I was a member of this group. But it needs some maintaining, definitely.
Cool. Wow, that's powerful. I something I really want to consider now in terms of how my well, firstly, I wish I did that with my parents. It would have sorted out probably.
Someone told me, Victor, if you want to, you can turn this to the job. Just help adults end their childhoods.
Yeah, just like, there's probably a lot of messy in between bits that could have been done with. To think about this with my son, having my son tell me, yes, I've been smoking weed for the past few years is going to be a challenge. But like you said, different roles. And the thing I'm getting from this, and why I'm very curious, I think Jennifer's actually touched on this, is about when we are, and this is also depends on what you consider as community. But I feel like when you can create this process of becoming part of something, so at a certain level, you're coming into a community as a newcomer. The thing I got from what you're saying before, this idea of dissolving a bit of yourself to then transform to be part of something else.
I think that's an important element to joining something, the sacrifice that brings you into the group.
I'd be curious, I don't know if there's any stories that you can share about how you've seen this happen in communities. And I think some are doing in-person communities and some are doing online communities. A question would be, do you have an example or a story of how this is, how you've seen this work or used or even just touched on in your experience?
In this community forming, which I'm showing pictures of now, the first step to the ritual of initiating the community, which took place in this space right here, was for it took place during arrival. The first 2 hours of people arriving in the space, there was a ritual they had to do individually that was about sacrifice, and this sacrifice is quite simple. It's prompted by the question: if I'm stepping into a new community, if I'm stepping into this weekend together, what aspects of me do I want to leave on the outside? It could be my certain judgmental behaviors, self-doubts, ways in which I know I'm poor as a collaborator, ways in which I know I can disrupt the flow of a positive experience. Just trying to define those bits and just leaving it on the outside. Equally, I mean, there is a monetary sacrifice to being part of an experience like this. People pay for it and they travel for it, which I think is important. It doesn't have to be money, but it has to, like a good transformative experience has to come with a price. Recently, I had helped a friend who's been struggling with depression, and he's been really pacified. And I told him to pay me with by sacrificing something from his current life, like the situation he's put himself in, to sacrifice something from that as payment. Also because he needs to make space. Like if you want to clean your house, and to see if you see that as sacrificing your dirt to the abstract idea of clean, or however you want to see it, that's much easier. You're sacrificing the dirt. That's what he did. He paid me with the dirt in his kitchen. He sacrificed the dirt as payment. And the most of the really tight grit communities I come across are kind of made up with people who have made a big sacrifice, people who have moved countries to be part of something, or gotten out of a really well-defined, safe situation to be part of something. And I think as community builders, if you want to have a strong community, you will have to really ask people to give something up to be part of it.
Cool. So there's a strong element of sacrifice. Tony, do you want to unmute yourself? I see you have a question there around creating transformative experiences with rituals. Maybe do you want to clarify in your case what kind of context you have? So maybe Viktor can speak to that a bit more.
Yeah, sorry. I'm also partly whispering because I'm in a library, so apologies.
No worries.
Yeah, because people that offer their time, their skills, etc., within my community for the charities that we're supporting, it's more of a rather than selling a service, or it's more of a transformative experience for them. And I just wanted to touch back on what you said then around those experiences with rituals. So how have you done that previously?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Sorry, bear with me. My sound keeps dropping in and out as well.
Yeah.
So in her question on the thing is, how would you create these transformative experiences with rituals? And then with the context of Tony's community, maybe you explain a little bit more about to Viktor where you would see this happening in your community, or where you'd like to look at creating a ritual in your community, Tony.
I'm really sorry. I can't seem to hear much.
Okay.
So Tony, she with her community. Correct me if I'm wrong about your community. So you're trying to help people engage with charities. Is that correct?
Yeah. Sorry. I think I can. Yeah. I basically members of our community, they pledge their time and their skills and their expertise to charity. So when looking into that membership, or when looking into that community, how would you evidence those? I'm really sorry, my sound's going.
That's okay. I think we can go on from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on the goal for the ritual. If you want people to have like a first interaction, delivering work for your community to help others, in a way that kind of creates momentum and just energy to do that more. That could be one goal. Another one is to create community cohesion for your particular group. And if you take that for an example, I think it's important to kind of create a symbolic act or moment which is shared. Like, you try to create the doorway into the community, your community, and in a way that an older member can go point at that door and say, that's the door I came in through. Like in the case of Happy Startups, for a lot of people, that's pointing to the summer camp. That's how I really got integrated in this particular community, by going to the summer camp. That might change. Those kind of definitions of what the door looks like are always up for discussion and reshaping. But yeah, to try to define a shared way in, a challenge. I mean, that's what you want, because stepping over a threshold, you have to think about that element of stepping over. It takes a bit of work. It's something that should be hard. I mean, if you want something really powerful, something really that changes your way of seeing yourself, stepping over the threshold should feel impossible. It should be, I'm not a person who is able to do that. But if I do that, then clearly I'm wrong about what kind of person I am. You see the point to that? the ritualized threshold should be too hard for you to do, because it's going to force you to see yourself in a different light, allowing a new way of being. And that can involve help from other community members, of course, depending on, how much it's about individually feeling capable of something, or how much it's about feeling capable of something as being part of this team of people. I'm not sure exactly how it could look like in your case. I don't know what interactions you and people you cooperate have with these charities.
I think it may be the value that the members bring to the charities as well, and kind of putting that out there.
Yeah. And then if you create an artifact as well from passing that threshold, or from doing maybe the first interaction alone with a client, you can then collect those objects that will kind of be a representation of this moment in a space that then represents the further community. You can see that when placing it there, okay, I've done the same thing as everyone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Essentially, it should be something that feels a little bit too difficult.
Okay. I can do that.
Yeah, cool.
Making people slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. So there's a couple of more questions. So Jennifer, I just wanted to get clarity on your question. I wasn't sure what it meant. You said, is there online community without in-person abilities?
Yeah, sorry, that wasn't a complete sentence. I meant for online communities, can you describe ways to have activities like this that aren't in person? Because I'm building an online community that's going to be spread long distances, and it won't be the goal necessarily to get people in one place together. So I'm trying to find ways to do things via distance, online conversations, or what type of things can I make it part of the community virtually?
Yeah. It's not the kind of work I've been delivering, just a little bit, but yeah, you can definitely do that. As long as there is clarity around kind of the process a person needs to go through to become a full-fledged member, and as long as you maintain the narrative around that process, you will get an acceptance around it, and it's going to get stronger and reinforced. Once you've had a lot of people go through a kind of initiation process to the community, their experience might also say that unless you do this, you're not completely in the group. I know that can be a limitation, so you have to be careful if you want to have a strong narrative existing about who's in and out or not, and the implications about that. But yeah, I think again, as with the conversation with Tony right then, just figure out something that takes a bit of work for someone to do. Back to sacrifice, if you have to show up in the community and take a lot of space, expose yourself, initiate something, even just a conversation, you at least sacrifice your anonymity and your passivity. Is that how you say that? Passivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
One thing that we did in an early stage of building our community was having people sign up to a manifesto. So there was like a list of beliefs that we said, all right, this is what we believe in business is. Do you agree? and that was like a very small but clear commitment. I don't know if that's something that
little contracts are good. It's that kind of thing clarifies that I know the rules for taking part, but I think it might not really put energy into that taking part. So these are about rituals that are like the initial doorway, but then the kind of rituals that happen on a regular basis or semi-regular basis, they are definitely for maintaining that energy and for maintaining the vision on who is in the group, seeing those eyes, sharing a space. It's also really important to maintain things and create rhythm, and whatever momentum you might have will always need some kind of rejuvenation. It will need some new energy, and that's strongly done through collective effort. That shouldn't be so individualized.
So there's what I hear there's, correct me if I'm wrong, then there's rituals of initiation, so when you're first transitioning in, and then there's kind of rituals of renewal or renewals of commitment. You said about ongoing rituals that are present.
I mean, there's this like one-off rituals. You only this might not be the case today, but you should only get married once, for example. It's clear before and after. But equally, leaving education, getting initiated to your professional role is something that happens once. Then there are rituals that are reoccurring, that are about maintaining a worldview as well. But we have to be careful with seeing that ritual is act and thinking is like something that happens before or after. Ritual is definitely a way of thinking as well. And I don't necessarily believe it's super relevant to speak of types of rituals. It's more interesting and more creatively kind of viable to only speak about ritualization as a kind of a degree to processes or actions. Like if I get on the train, am I just traveling, or am I deciding to leave the chapter that the past weeks in the UK have been for me? And how do I want to use that train journey then to transform these experiences into something that I can integrate and use in the future? Or I just sit on the train and read a book. That's degrees of ritualization. And that's what I was trying to speak about with this aspect of ritual condensing things, condensing a topic, and equally this prescribed element. Okay, when I take this step now, it means this. It means leaving my being traveling in the summer, and it's a step out of this chapter. And then there is the aspect of enactment, which that is to kind of dramatize the step and using the body. It's an embodied enactment. And this can be to very different goals and in very different shapes, but to be in a ritual stance, in a ritual kind of state of mind, doesn't necessarily create a hard line where something is a ritual and something isn't.
It sounds like degrees of intention. How much the thing that you're doing, how much clear intention is behind it?
Yeah, I think intention helps because we use intention to definitely condense topics, to say this thing is just about that, to leave, and then that thing becomes thicker. And intention also creates that prescriptive thing, of if my intention is to go and be nice to my host, to show my thankfulness for having been allowed to stay here, well, that's gonna prescribe me going to buy a gift or cooking a meal for when Tom gets home. So the intention plays in, and it's definitely inducive for ritualization. So yeah, use that. Absolutely use the idea that intentionality is related to how you create a ritual.
I'm thinking from the perspective of, say, I think with Jennifer and an online community, and depending on, as again, on the type of community she's trying to build. But if it's very much about creating a sense of connection for the people who are in there, there's a level of there's the ritualization of that process of stepping in, so that they are intentionally being part of this community, and then what it is they do on an ongoing basis to the way I think of it is to refresh that commitment, to make themselves seen or recognize they are still part of this community.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's too much of a stretch.
It happens here with the community builders of the community the community of community builders coming together to see each other's faces and be part of shared experience. Of course, this one is about learning, but it has an element of ritualization, of maintaining the life of this particular community. Yeah.
And so an example for me sounds like if you can create a regular space where people can come together, to whether it's about learning or sharing a challenge, that could potentially have a ritualized aspect to it.
Definitely,
that creates connection.
And then it can be. It's important to then take in mind that if you have a high frequency of this ritual, if the webinar happens often, the ritual intensity should kind of come down. Whereas if something only happens once or once a year, you can have a higher ritual intensity. Because it's a little bit exhausting as well to be in ritual. Even if it can give you energy, it's demanding. It is a demanding space to be in.
And that sounds like that's key to it. It asks of you something when you have a ritual. Because you talked about sacrifice. There was something there that demands from you some energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this threshold topic is good. Like, if you want to step over a threshold, you need to have that demanding step, right? And that plays into why it's important to separate, because that step is not going to be possible if you have a backpack full of baggage. Just let go of that first, so you're a bit lighter, and then step over. But it's also when it comes to like identification, to understand that it's very hard for us to be two things at once, and many times we absolutely shouldn't be or can't be. Like the child can't be an adult and a child at the same time, not fully at least. So for that transformation to really happen, the identity of child has to die also to create space.
Would you like to turn off your screen share, by the way? I just realized we are still on.
Absolutely, yeah, sorry.
And I'm just conscious also we're coming towards the end of the webinar.
Yeah. Did I do that correctly? Yeah.
Yep, that's all great. No,
yeah. So we just have a couple of minutes, or can we do a 5-minute little exercise?
Is everyone okay to do a quick 5-minute exercise?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to ask for your help, Carlos, in creating some little groups. But I want I want us all, I guess I will be part of this too, to think of a threshold that's coming up. A moment in our personal lives, in our professional lives, that will have a before and after, like with a project that's about to start. Before it existed, before it was live, and then after it's live, when it's actually existing. Or with a collaboration that needs to end. Right now it's live as a collaboration, but soon it shouldn't be, because we won't have a client relationship or a collaboration relationship. Or just at a big identity shift of your company or whatever. Does that make sense?
So a threshold or a transition that's going to happen in your business or work life or personal life.
Yeah. And then just tell that to the other person in your group of two, and have the other person just come with some ideas of how this might look like crossing this threshold.
Cool.
And yeah, let's just fail and see what happens.
And so is it just sharing that, or is there anything else we want them to do?
Just share, get some feedback, switch, maybe 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes each, just very quick, just how it feels to speak about the threshold and get some ideas of how to create symbols that are relevant for that threshold.
Is anyone unsure what they're doing next? If you're good, I'm now going to put you into breakout rooms, and then I will give you up to 5 minutes. I'll let you know when 2.5 minutes are over, and then I'll bring you back into the room so that we can discuss in more detail. So, give me a sec. I'm just going to assign you into different rooms. Right. Okay, I will see you all. I'm going to open the rooms. Please join your rooms and be back in about 5 minutes. In the meantime, it'll be just you and me, Victor.
Yeah, great. Do you want to try it?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
So a point of transition, you're saying.
Yeah.
And this could be
an initiation, a transformation, or
I think let's go with the Happy Startup School community, because that's the thing that's very live for me at the moment. And it's this transition of for people who become new members.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm really curious about how to make that much more powerful as an experience. And I think the caveat, or also the thing I'm conscious of as well, is like this. I really appreciate and like the idea of the sacrifice required, or the threshold aspect of it. But at the same time, there's a thing that's holding me back about, I'd like to make this accessible and open to as many people as possible. And so there's that conflict, which arises when I think about that. I don't know if you can help in that situation.
No, of course. I think there seems to be some kind of silent agreement that going to the summer camp is a kind of threshold into the community. Maybe it could be a way forward to transform that, keep the core of it, but take away the aspect that's actually being at the summer camp by unpacking the most central parts of being present there and sharing that experience. Then those essential parts can have a new form that's then applicable to people who are very far away, who will never go there, for example.
So could you be more specific in terms of what that could mean in this case?
No, I haven't personally been to a summer camp yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually sure what's there to unpack. But if you can name like 3 to 5 things that you feel are very central to that experience?
So at the beginning of summer camp, we have a welcome address by our MC. We also have we've done in the past kind of a circle where everyone is seen. Everyone who's come to summer camp can see each other. We had 2 years ago an exercise where we placed ourselves on this imaginary grid in the field based on how happy you are and how financially successful you thought you were. And so you kind of made a declaration of money and happiness.
Okay.
And then you were able to see where other people were in relation to you, and then you could go towards the people you wanted to be with.
Yeah. So yeah, there are some things here that's definitely translatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there is a circle where everyone is seen, maybe that's something that's possible to create in some other way on the online platform.
Mm-hmm.
I think that element of being seen and might be super relevant for feeling as a member. And that grid, absolutely possible to make like a little online thing where you just put your name for it to be there.
Like a score of how financially successful you think you are and how happy you are.
If you believe that showing up on that grid is something that people saw as important for them becoming members, then absolutely, maybe there should be another way to take part in that practice.
Well, the way I think that springs to mind there is defining where you are on this journey. So if we take the lens of actually by joining as a member, you are committing to a journey.
Yeah.
And then being able to then declare where you are as part of this sacrifice, really openly sharing, this is where I am.
But I think really what might be the challenge is for all the eyes to come there, because I think when people join the community and when it's going to be like a few hundred people on there, it's not very likely that you will have all those eyes on you as you become a member. So if there is a process every year or half a year when new members get seen and older members are asked and hopefully show up as present, that could solve that. But
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like the idea.
How was that for you guys? Did you come up with some thresholds?
We had lots of technical issues, unfortunately.
Oh no!
All right.
we didn't really succeed, but
that's okay. But was it nice for you to be thinking about thresholds in your life?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very useful. Very, very useful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Patrick and Jennifer, how did you get on?
Great.
Yeah.
You want to go first, Jennifer?
Oh, sure. So I'm trying to figure out a way to maintain momentum with a new group. So it'll be few people to start with, and then make sure that people come back and are really invested in the community. And Patrick suggested
sort of buddying, wasn't it?
Sorry?
Yeah, like buddying was one of the ideas.
A buddy, yeah. Really involving people with each other and having it as a small group type of thing, which is right in line with what I want to do. So that was perfect.
Yeah, cool.
And I really value chatting with Jennifer. And my challenge is a bit different. It's kind of stepping outside the bounds of law and deliberately trying to be intentionally breaking the law. And it's like quite a sort of quite, but for a good reason.
Abdel looks scared.
Yeah, it's don't worry, it's nothing. You're not implicated by knowing about it, but I'll keep it obtuse. But it's quite weird to sort of think of oneself as being a law follower and suddenly actually saying, you know what, to actually try and make something better, I might have to leave that personality behind and embrace something quite else, and that's quite scary as well. So
yeah, of course, really.
Is this part of your climate activism question?
Exactly,
comment?
yeah. And it's one of those things where actually, I've been looking a lot at the history of it and seeing how changes actually get made. And you look at, everything from the sort of salt strikes in India out to civil rights, out to votes for women. And, so much of it comes through deliberately being difficult. And that actually is quite difficult for lots of people who like to follow the rules,
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it there, but it's
cool.
a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, I like this. It's interesting.
Might be a lot to learn from the mafia. Rituals of going from law-abiding to
too much violence. It's strictly non-violence, so hopefully nothing from the mafia.
Oh, yes. So there's what I got from you there, Patrick, was this transition or transformation of identity from being able to do something in a way that is against what you may have done before, but for a good reason. And so how to
within a system and without a system. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. And so there's
it's difficult in a society where disobedience is forbidden. That's a narrative already from the school age, and there is plenty of narratives about how we're allowed to be that can be kind of broken up by ritualized acts. If I do this, I also tell myself that it's allowed for me to behave like this.
It makes me think very much about your childhood to adulthood transformation and leaving an identity behind.
Yeah, I mean, it also allowed me to see myself as an adult, which just improved my life immensely. That I was allowed to play that role.
So from there, I think there's what I think with Patrick is like that transition, which allows you to play the role of being this change maker or activist that takes these actions that maybe a previous identity or way of looking at yourself may not have been possible or as comfortable.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm conscious now that we're gone a bit over time. What I'd like to say is, firstly, thank you very much to everyone for joining us and for sharing this space. And thank you very much to Viktor for sharing your ideas about rituals. And it's quite deep stuff. And I assume it's going to, well, for me, it's going to take a while to sink in.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I don't know, there are elements there that I picked out that I'd like to use and think about. So before we all leave, a quick checkout. If you'd like to unmute yourselves and just a quick share of something that you'll taken away from this webinar today. So, Tony.
Like you, Carla. Hi, hello. Like you, I really liked the childhood to adulthood scenario there. So I'm going to take that away, process, and have a little think around how we can do that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tony. Patrick.
Just lots and lots, but fascinating. Thank you so much. And I really loved hearing your story, Viktor. It was really beautiful and delicate. And just thank you very, very much for sharing that with us.
Nice one. Abdel Hafid.
Thank you really for this insight and the interesting discussion. Thank you, Viktor, for your amazing story. What I just kept this symbolism in ritual, and what does this mean for new members and this transition experience. I would really go with these outcomes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Abdel Hafid. Brilliant. Well, again, thank you very much, Viktor. Wave.
Thanks, everyone. It's been lovely.
Yay. And yeah, until the next time, see you soon on the Community Builders webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Should I stick around for a second with you, Carlos?
Yeah. I'm just stopping the live stream. That's off. And then...
there we go.
Cool. How were you? How did that go?